Hello everyone, hi, how are you guys doing today? Welcome back to another episode reaction to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is Haarute, my name is Matt. Hello, what's up? Okay, so last time on Buffy we got an episode where there was a very hilarious moment where I blurted out a reaction that was in hindsight it was incredibly funny, and it was also incredibly funny for like the people over at Patreon, because when I released my reaction to the Dawn episode 2, there were several people that were like, there's so much I want to say, but I can't say it yet. And then when I released my reaction to episode 3, everyone was like, this is what I wanted to say. You literally predicted next episode. So that was really funny. So yeah, it was an episode. It was a very Sander heavy episode, which I really liked. There's a lot of things that are very interesting about Sander's relationship, and reveal into Riley's and Buffy's relationship at the end of the episode. And I like how that fits into the comparisons between their relationship and Sander and Anya's relationship, and how that is maybe something that is starting to click in Sander's head. Anyway, I just want to move quickly into recording the episode, but first let me say, this past week has been a mess because I have been dealing with my hard drive dying. And I think it's just dying. Like, there's nothing I can do about that. It's just bleh. I tried a bunch of things. I saved as many files as I could, and then I formatted the whole thing. And it wasn't a quick format. It was a full format. I erased everything from that fucking piece of shit, and it's still not working. And by not working, I mean it is working, but it like crashes, and Windows detects as if it had died for like a second every like couple hours, which is first of all annoying, but it could also be incredibly harmful in the middle of like a recording, for example. Sorry, this is tech talk. In case you don't know anything about tech, maybe just skip this part. I believe I have made it so anything that I do should be getting saved into my SSD, which is different for the hard drive. The issue is that the hard drive is still like 2/3 of my total storage, so the fact that it isn't working is bad. But I believe that if I'm recording these things, the episodes are playing, these recordings are going, and the audio recording is going, like all of it is going from the solid state drive, which means that it shouldn't crash. I don't know if it will have any other effects on the recording. I'm hoping it won't, but it shouldn't, because none of it is tied to the hard drive. We'll see. If there's like a random freeze somewhere, my hard drive died, and there's nothing I can do about that. I'm sorry. I just have to get new storage. I spent this past week just desperately trying to save it. I don't think I can anymore, so we'll see what we can do. I mentioned this during Angel, but let me just say it here. Yeah, sorry that it took me a little bit to get this video done. I've been fighting against my computer, and I hate it. Like, this is a part that no content creator wants to tell. Well, maybe they do want to tell you, but like, it's the part that is often overlooked. Man, you have no idea how many tech issues there are, and anytime you want to do anything. Anyway, sure, let's start with the episode. Patreon, check out the Patreon, support the channel. More importantly, you can also watch the next 2 episode reactions to Buffy in early access, as well as Angel watch-alongs and full-length reactions for all of it. If you're interested in that, go check that out. Let us begin. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Season 5, Episode 4? I believe it's 4, yeah. Yeah, 4. Let's go.
Professor Walsh. She
Riley episode. Interesting.
Nobody knows who I am.
So is Riley gonna die finally? Yeah. Like, they're gonna play that portion of Dawn at the beginning of every episode, just so you know, we're doing a Buffy sister gaslighting storyline this season. Don't worry about it. Alright, Buffy, you slayer, you killer. Wow, you can literally smell them as they come out.
Riley? Well, I just thought you were in the North Sector.
Good job, man. Is that Spike? I love that Spike just wants to throw hands with someone.
Spot of violence before bedtime.
That's actually kind of why Buffy's here.
Better keep out of my way, Spike. I'm not gonna take this much longer.
You shouldn't be out here when she's patrolling.
Oh, I saw that. Looks like neither boy's entirely welcome.
I just saw you taste your own noseblood. You know what? I'm too grossed out to hear anything you have to say. Go home.
That's interesting. Maybe he wants to get beat up. He didn't seem like he was concerned about getting hit. Maybe he wants to get beat up just to taste the blood.
Hey, you want to go again? Come on, I bet this place is just teeming with aerodynamic vampires.
No,
Are you both feeling this like rush?
I will make your neck my chalice and drink deep.
I knew it.
And Charlotte Corday wasn't a real martyr either.
Buffy, listen to us. We're arguing. We're having a debate about a college lecture.
It's weird for Buffy to be this engaged.
We've been studying really a lot.
I'm trying. I'm starting to think this working hard is hard work.
Isn't it crazy like that?
Plans work perfectly.
Yeah, blueprints. Not a bad idea.
Careful with that tool. An uncle of mine opened his entire leg with that shit like a couple months ago. It was a deep ass wound, as it should be. Tara's here. I'm locked in.
We want to pick exploded monkey out of our hair?
Exploded monkey hair. That I want to go to a shop and be like, hey, I need some exploded monkey hair. It has to be exploded.
We got a real psychic to sit up here and read fortunes and stuff.
You should do it.
Not me. But I'd love to watch and learn.
Why are you holding a tower? Don't you fucking dare get Tara near the tower.
Oh my god. Look at this place. But thank you so much.
It's just a start.
The fact that she's so hyped up for it is so...
So come on, let's test this puppy out. Think you can take me?
Completely ignored her.
Competition?
Must have been so much work.
Completely ignoring him.
You're like my fairy godmother and Santa Claus and Q all wrapped up into one.
I think I'm realizing that Riley doesn't really add it. I mean, okay, no, I mentioned this before. Riley doesn't really add anything to the dynamic. But something I'm realizing is that Riley doesn't actually add anything. Harmony.
Well. Looky here.
That's why I'm on the lam. I'm totally her arch nemesis.
Is that right?
I need a hideout so bad.
Well, she knows I live
only
here.
hope.
So...
Taking up smoking, are you?
I am a villain, Spike. Hello.
I guess you are at that. She'll hunt you down day and night till you're too tired and too hungry to run anymore. Then, that is you. I guess you're gonna have to kill her.
It was all hard and stuff. You do it.
I'd love to. I've got this cute little government chip in my head.
All right.
Okay,
Guess
so
it'll
she
have
knows
to be
about
me
that.
after all.
Yeah.
That was relaxing.
Wanna relax some more?
Again? Right away again?
Maybe you're too tired.
Hey, I have the endurance of 10 men. Yeah, it takes a lot to wear me out.
Didn't we have an episode where we literally fucked for like a whole day or days?
Make the substitute cry.
The
It's
cereal
like a
is
rite of
spilling.
passage.
Get this.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm on X.
What is...
What is the... Who are you?
Interesting. Here we go. First very interesting thing happening about... Maybe it wasn't just that random one guy. Maybe it's just people at random this happens.
Mom, are you okay? I'm okay.
Wait, she's smiling.
Dizzy spell, low blood sugar, that sort of thing.
But it's nothing bad. I mean, it's not serious, right?
She's just so checked out.
Oh, I mean, not that I know of. She's usually really healthy.
I think you'd be able to take her home before too long.
Ooh, that's... Yeah, okay, so he's running hot. He's running hot. I could tell.
Repeating myself here, but I don't know what else to say to convince you. I have never, in all my years of medicine, let a patient with tachycardia this severe leave a hospital. I can't force you to do a thing.
His heart is gonna explode.
And your friend here can't convince you to?
I'm going.
Why is he so determined to not? Does he know? Has he known this for a while?
What are you doing? What if you have a heart attack?
Listen to me. Calm down. My heart's different than yours, Buffy. It works differently now. But it's okay.
Hi. Hey.
So
how are
what's
you?
up with Joyce?
Let's, get out of here.
Man, like, why doesn't he... Like, the smart thing to do would be like, yeah, I was a lab rat for months, but like, like my heart could see it explode, right? He doesn't seem to have a concern for that. So,
being alone.
that one guy that we
feel
saw
fine.
randomly outside the store, maybe that wasn't just a one-case scenario. Maybe people at random sometimes just feel like Dawn is not from this world or something. She doesn't belong here.
Did you know that one time the CIA tried to kill Fidel Castro with a poisonous aspirin?
Dawn, please. It's so unfair. And it's like Big Brother can spy on you all the time, and the second I have something to say, no one will listen.
If they're really spying on you all the time, just say something so you know they'll hear you. Like sometimes I write fake things in my diary in case...
Maybe that's why Riley didn't want to make a big deal out of it. He's afraid of someone.
Riley's in trouble. He needs help.
Okay, so she's telling the government. My man's heart's about to explode, I got. So he's running so hard.
Graham? Riley?
Oh, this guy!
We gotta get this taken care of immediately. We gotta get you into an operating room.
Makes me completely want to put myself under government control. You're still in. I'm out. I don't know what orders you're following.
You need help. I'm not saying it to trick you.
Well, maybe you even believe it.
It's just this paranoia that like nobody can help you but yourself.
We got a guy, a doctor. He's gonna take care of you, and we're going to him now.
Okay, here we go.
So
I feel like I recognize one of those actors.
Hyperadrenal overload and a bunch of stuff that sounds even worse than that. And all it means is he's way stronger than he ought to be and feeling no pain. His heart can't take it. We've been at him for weeks about it. There's a specialist waiting at Sunnydale General, 4th floor neurology.
Neurology?
He's gotten somewhere where he doesn't want to be found.
Maybe he just needs some time alone. Like, I had this friend once who really liked this girl, and he got all worried that maybe she didn't like him back. And maybe that made him act like a total jerk. Maybe Riley reminds me of that friend. Then again, maybe not. Maybe he just wants attention.
Well, here's a hot tip. If you want attention, be there so people can give it to you.
I care about you, Xander. Because I also have this friend, and I have it on really good authority that she really likes that guy, your friend. And by the by, my friend...
You guys, enough!
We do have an associate who knows those caves like the back of his melanin-deprived hand.
I so don't want to deal with Spike right now.
Maybe the whole not killing is getting to him.
Plus, hanging out all day in that moldy crypt, you just know he's doing something nasty.
Is it bigger than a bread box?
No. 4 left.
So it's smaller than a bread box?
No, only 3.
Is it a sodding bread box?
Yes! Oh my god! Someone's blind!
I've got a proposition for you.
Funny. I got a proposition for you. What about knocking?
Riley's sick with some initiative thing and he's missing. I think he might be in the caves. You find him, bring him to the 4th floor of the hospital. Their doctors get to him in time.
Ooh.
You get the cash.
Send Spike alone?
I'm just saying if it's really that important to you, I think I'll get half now.
Oh.
They'll be here any minute. That's soon enough, right? I mean, if we bring him in now?
I'm not sure it's soon enough if you brought him in yesterday.
Okay. Really bad then. Well.
You got yourself a new patient, Doc.
Oh! Remove the chip from Spike. Okay, yeah. Okay. Those seem like completely separate cases, right? Like, Riley doesn't have a chip anymore, does he? He had one and he forcibly removed him from himself and now his heart has sucked him up. It's different from Spike's chip in his brain. You could have just gone to any doctor at any time and threatened them and be like, take it.
That chip is deeply embedded in your cerebral cortex. Removing it could leave you a vegetable.
That's not gonna happen, mate. Yeah. You load me up and kill him before the night's over. You do me right, nothing bad will happen to you.
Oops. String was slippy. Fiat Lux!
Whoa. How'd you do that? With the light?
Oh, you tell me.
I taught you teeny Tinkerbell light.
Okay, so I tinkered with the Tinkerbell. It was easy.
Okay, he is here. Punching walls.
I'm taking you to the doctor.
The one from the government, you mean? Like the ones who did this to me in the first place?
My man, you're about to die.
I'm more powerful than I've ever been, Buffy. Most people would kill to feel this way.
Yeah, and this feeling is going to kill you. Riley, your body was not built for this kind of stress.
I can handle it. This is my deal, Buffy. Just back off.
I mean, this just feels like a drug BSA episode.
They could do anything that... Best case scenario, they turn me into Joe Normal. Just another guy.
And that's not enough for you?
It's not enough for you.
Yeah, that's the problem. He doesn't fit into the picture.
Your last boyfriend wasn't exactly a civilian.
You're going to die over some macho pissing contest.
It's not about him. It's about us. You're getting stronger every day. More powerful. I can't touch you. Every day, you're just a little further out of my reach.
Yeah, you could tell at the beginning of this episode.
I'm not the one running away.
Not yet.
So you have this all figured out. I'm bailing because you're not in the super club. Nobody has ever known me the way you do. I've opened up to you in ways that I've never opened up to. God, you're just sitting back there thinking that none of this means anything to me.
I never said that.
Because it obviously doesn't mean anything to you. Do you think that I spent the last year with you because you had superpowers? If that's what I wanted, then I'd be dating Spike. Riley, I need you. I need you healthy. But if you want to throw it all away because you don't trust me, then I'm still gonna make you go to that doctor.
Take me to him. Loving you's the scariest thing I've ever done, Buffy.
Okay.
The doctor said we didn't have much time.
I mean, look at it.
Harmony.
So,
Leave the man alone.
can I touch it?
No.
Oh my god, you're awake?
Local anesthetic.
Wow, Spiky. How does it feel?
Local anesthetic.
Is it supposed to do that?
For God's sake, please be quiet. How many fingers I got?
17. Hustle 17 and a blonde girl.
Spike and Harmony together again.
Okay.
We don't find the medic soon, he's not gonna make it.
When I get my hands on Spike, I'm gonna rip his head off. I'm gonna
Bathe in the Slayer's blood. Swim in it.
Y'all need to shut up.
I see it, Spiky. I see the chip. It's nestled in there like a pretty little Easter egg with your brain all around it, like that green plastic grassy stuff. Only this is more of a beige.
Would you please put out that cigarette? It's really not allowed.
Don't put it out in his brain.
Says who? Oh God, sorry. Didn't see the sign.
He's gonna start a fire.
The chip's out. I didn't think I could do it.
Stitch me up, Doc. Got places to go.
Alright. Maybe the chip isn't out. He just stole Harmony. Yeah, don't smoke. So she wouldn't look. That would be a mad play from the doc. It would be awesome.
I won't fill up on the bread. I'll still have plenty of room for the main course.
Okay. Hi.
Slayer! Suit up, Harm.
stay here. We're gonna need you.
I mean, send him to a safe place.
I was just thinking of you. I wanted to tell you the great news. My head's all clear now. No more bug zapper in my noggin.
Doesn't feel it.
Oops.
I mean, that's the best thing she could have done. I was worried that she was just gonna fire at his torso, you know, something that would actually harm him. But
At long last.
yes! Yes! The doctor did it! The math lad! He lied to him! Oh god, it's happening. His heart exploded. Spike's brain doesn't work. They're just gonna run away. Well, Harmon's the only one that could have done it. Riley's dying. There's no way that Riley isn't dying.
That nasty little face. That Benson shampoo commercial hair. That the whole sodding holier-than-thou attitude. She follows me, you know, tracks me down. I'm a pet project. Drives Spike round the bend. Makes every day a fresh bout of torture.
Is he gonna lash out on Harmony and kill her?
You don't understand. I can't get rid of her. She's everywhere. She's haunting me, Harmony.
Okay. I like this. This is interesting for Spike.
This has got to end.
Okay. We made it? Okay.
And see, I'm still touchable.
Give me a week or so to heal, and I'll take full advantage of that fact.
Are you gonna be okay? As I should really go check on my mom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I'll be fine.
I'll talk to you later.
It's a good thing Buffy found you when she did, because you were about to detonate big time. But you know you don't belong here, right? This town? I mean, you're nothing here. Hey. Come on, man. You know it's true. There's nothing for you here.
There's her.
Okay, right. There's her. And? You used to have a mission, and now you're what? Mission's boyfriend? Mission's true love? You belong with us.
That's why okay. I was like, why is he saying those things? That is so out of nowhere.
I'm done. Spike, you're a killer. And I should have done this years ago.
You know what?
Do it. Bloody just do it.
End my torment. Seeing you every day, everywhere I go, every time I turn around. Take me out of a world that has you in it. Kill me.
Okay. Sure. I mean, you know what? I buy it. Are you gonna go back for it? No, you know what? Sure. Yeah. The shippers were right.
Buffy, I love you.
This is like an insane thing to happen. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay.
Oh God, no.
That makes even more sense. Okay. We're chilled down. We've calmed down. Good. I'm glad we've calmed down. Otherwise, this discussion was gonna go off the rails. It was gonna get crazy. Just before we move on from that, like, because I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna have to record the discussion later, but before I go, like, the reason why I say I buy this is because, like, everyone says that, like, love and hate is like a coin and it's just two sides of the same coin, and it's like, it's kind of true, and especially when it comes to like fictional characters, because there's this level of obsessiveness and permanence that a person has on you, and that is something that I definitely see in Spike. Spike is losing his goddamn mind, and he just brings it up in this episode of just like how everything is Buffy. He can't escape Buffy. And it's something I've been noticing over these episodes that we've seen this season, is that Buffy will literally just like kick his door down and be like, fucking tell me whatever, and then just bully him, just like beat his ass and leave. There was a moment where like she was asking information from him and he told her the truth, and then she still like beat him up, and then he was like, I was still in the truth, and she's like, I know. And that's like an abusive loop. Like, I understand that Spike is a bad guy, he is a bad guy, but Spike has been like baby girlified to, like, they have removed Spike's like Spike as a threat, Spike as something that you should be afraid or intimidated by. They have emasculated this man. They have like removed anything about him that could be threatening, and now he's a punching bag. And at a certain point, you kind of have to feel bad for the punching bag. Like, at which point does like the amount of shit that you see in Spike actually just goes away and you start actually kind of feeling bad for him? Like, that's essentially what Spike is in the show, I think. And like, then if we start looking at Spike from like the perspective of someone, you know, someone who's being abused, you start to feel really bad, and you start to understand like what would happen to a guy if that were to be the case. And what is happening to him is that he's losing his mind. He's becoming obsessed with Buffy in a negative sense, which, like, I didn't say it, but like when he was with Harmony at the graveyard and he was like, I can't take it anymore, I was like, he's gonna ask her to kill him. And then later when Buffy showed up in the dream and he was like, you know what, do it, kill me, I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. I feel like he's losing his mind so much that he just doesn't want to live in this world where everything is Buffy. He's like, fuck, no, like, I can't stop thinking about this girl. And then when you say that, it very clearly becomes, oh shit, I have feelings for Buffy. Like, you can't stop thinking about this girl, so like, okay, like, we just take one step to the side and now we're making out. So that makes sense to me. Now, would that actually happen? I think that if there's something going on with Buffy being like the Slayer, and it's just the essence of the Slayer or whatever, I feel like Buffy could, and especially after what happened with Riley, I feel like Buffy could just jump out and just start fucking things. Maybe not in a romantic way, but in like a more wild, animalistic way. Because like the spirit of the Slayer, I think it's all instinct and no feeling. So if we go by those rules, also someone mentioned to me, and this is an interesting point, someone mentioned to me, and something I've forgotten, but I remember because someone brought it up. Someone brought up that when Faith was introduced, she had like a throwaway line whenever she was like, oh yeah, you know, like slaying always makes me horny. Doesn't it make you horny too, Buffy, or whatever? And Buffy didn't want to say anything. Someone brought that up to me, and they were like, maybe, like, we kind of ignore that, we kind of look past that, but maybe that's just a thing that happens in this world. And if that's true for the Slayer, then all of this is intrinsically like tied to each other. So if Buffy is looking at Spike and is killing and slaying and hunting, and then she's just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. I'm gonna fuck him. Like, that is a step that makes a tangible amount of sense. From Spike's perspective, it makes a lot of sense for him to start losing his mind so much so that he falls in love with Buffy. As for whether that would actually happen, I think that it would happen because of Spike. And I feel like if we tug at Buffy's strings enough, that could happen from her end too. I feel like if enough bullshit happens in an episode, we could have that be like the result of the episode, the resolution. I feel like that is potentially a possibility. There was even an episode already when they were like, last season there was the episode where Willow wished for them to like marry as a joke, and then it happened. That could happen. That could be a thing. Like, again, this is from a, not from a character perspective, but from like a writing or storytelling perspective, or also a shipping perspective even. It makes sense to me because just grabbing characters who have this like any kind of strong feelings towards one another, it's very easy to grab that and be like, and now they're fucking. Like, it's very easy. So it makes a lot of sense for the show to just like lean into that. And they already did so last season in a joke episode. And now they're doing it again, but this time it's for real. This time Spike feels it for real. And if Buffy falls enough, and I can see it as a thing that could happen if we're going further into like the spirit of the Slayer shit, I could see that as a possibility in the future. So sure, that's just something I want to get out of the way. We're going to be talking about Riley in a second here. I'm going to go make myself some food, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to record the rest of this. See you guys in a little bit. All right, we're back. Hi, what's up? This is several hours later, by the way. The episode's still fresh in my mind. I'm still going to like go through it as I usually do, but let's talk about it and things that I have thought about it since. Something that occurred to me is like, I mean, just an extra layer. We already know how Spike feels at this point. I already talked about it, but something that occurred to me is that like when like the last scene we see him in the cemetery, he's freaking out over Buffy. He keeps ranting about how Buffy's in everything and he can't stand that anymore. And then it's like, well, what does he do? And then he fucks Harmony. And we can see it when he wakes up from the nightmare. It clearly looks like they just had sex. Like Spike and Harmony had sex, and then he dreamed about Buffy. And like, just in case it wasn't clear enough, the idea that you start ranting about this like girl who's everywhere, you can't stop thinking about her, and then you go and have sex with the nearest blonde girl that is like right next to you, I think that it's pretty clear, right? In case it wasn't clear enough, like to Spike as a character, I'm looking at him and I'm like, I don't know, man. I think I think that you should realize by this point, like, you didn't need to dream to do that. You should realize that by this point. And like we've seen in various episodes, like he's making like mannequins of Buffy. And like I think I even mentioned, now that I think about it, where that scene where he's grabbing the mannequin that he made of this like blonde girl, and he was like, "Oh, Slayer, I'm gonna get you," and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, it looked like he was gonna kiss it. I think that's what I said, because the way he was holding it like somewhat close, just staring into the mannequin's eyes, I'm like, my guy. So yeah, that's just an extra thing I thought about. It's the idea that like he's freaking out about Buffy, and then he looks and just fucks whoever the girl that's next to him is, and it's like there's a very clear link here between these two, my guy. Even if he didn't have that nightmare, I feel like you could look at those two events and be like, got it. I get where he's at. In fact, I kind of would have preferred that more, because it would have been more fun to like analyze that. But instead, it's just so blatantly, clearly obvious what they're showing you here. And I'm not against it, because the way that they did so was kind of really funny. I have to imagine that this is one of those episodes that like people want to see reactions to, because I have to imagine that there's a bunch of like people who watch this episode for the first time and they're like, sure, whatever, like I don't know why the fuck they're doing this, but it's happening. And then it's like, it's not. And then it's like, well, sure. We talk a bunch about Spike, and just to mention Spike again, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like literally 5 minutes ago, I was on my phone, and YouTube recommended me a video titled. God, I closed the app. But it was essentially James Marsters explains his evolution through like the Dragon Ball franchise. And it's a clip from like a podcast or something where he's talking about his involvement with Dragon Ball. And I'm like, I didn't know James Marsters was in Dragon Ball. So I watched that video and he was like, oh yeah, I was in Dragon Ball Evolution. And I was like, oh, that explains it. That movie sucks. I never seen it because I don't want to be upset at this movie. Maybe I'll watch it someday just to rag on it. But like, I genuinely live my life in such a manner where I don't like to rag on things, and that might come to as a surprise to some of y'all because that's what some of y'all believe that I do, but I don't. I generally try to give things fair shots, fair tries, and I try to praise the things that I do like. And I know for a fact that Dragon Ball Evolution is just gonna make me upset. So I've never seen it. I'm like, that's a waste of my time, and it's gonna deal real sanity damage to me, so I'm just not gonna watch it. And I'm watching this clip and it's like, oh yeah, I'm in that movie. Also, I think he said he's Piccolo. Let me look that up. I'm sorry, James Masters, you probably don't want me to see this. Oh my god. I mean, it doesn't even look like him. So I guess that's maybe a positive thing. I mean, it definitely probably sounds like him. He has a very, like, recognizable voice. But he doesn't look at all like the character. Like, let's be real. My god, this does not look like James Masters. Like, maybe if you squint enough, you can, like, see it. But I wouldn't realize that this is James Masters. The moment he starts talking, I probably would pierce it, though. Like, maybe. But just the visually, no, it's not there. But his name is in the credits, so that's probably a bad thing. Sucks to be him. Also, Piccolo should probably have been a black actor. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. And then he talks about like, oh yeah, so then when I did Dragon Ball Super, I removed my name from it because I wanted to just hyper fans to know that it was me, but it was kind of like an apology. And I'm like, he was in Super? I also didn't watch Super. Kind of for the same reasons. I mean, no, slightly different reasons. Super can be enjoyable, and I know a lot of people enjoy. Sorry, this is just a weird Dragon Ball tangent, but you know, Android 21 is right there in the background, right there. Android 21. She's not in any other shows, but she's in Dragon Ball Fighters, which is close enough. But like, I didn't watch Super. A friend of mine did. A couple actually. And like everyone just says like, yeah, Super is kind of whatever, and I'm like, okay, I don't need to watch it. Dragon Ball to me ended in GT, which I know isn't canon, but it's real to me, damn it. So like I had such an emotional connection to the ending of Dragon Ball GT. I actually posted something. Yeah, I posted something on my community tab when Akira Toriyama died about that. I just had such an emotional connection to that moment that like I never wanted to invest myself into anything new. I was like, it's done. It's a full closed book in my mind. I don't need to deal with any of it. So James Master being involved in like the two Dragon Ball projects I never cared for. Is really funny to discover right now, 5 minutes ago, before I started recording, talking about James Masters here in Buffy. He's definitely an actor that has been around because like I saw him in Torchwood first, unless maybe I saw it in something else and I forgot, but I saw him in Torchwood first, and people were telling me, oh dude, James Master's awesome, like I love this actor, everyone gets hyped up about him. I think I seen the reactions to Torchwood and people were like, oh dude, that's James Masters, and I'm like, I don't know who that guy is. He's very good as Captain John Hart. Now I'm discovering like backwards how around he's been as an actor. He's like involved in all these things that I know about now, and it's like he's actually very good. That's probably something I have to praise though, is that like Spike as a character, I think James Masters does a lot for this character. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. Marsters. I because it's not Masters, it's Marsters or something like that, right? I'm not mistaken in that. And I just say it quickly. Yeah, it's Marsters. I say it quickly, so maybe it sounds weird. But yeah, like he's been around a bunch of shit, and he's very good, actually. I really like the way he plays the characters, and I like the VO, and I like his voice a lot too. And Spike in Buffy is such an interesting character. The way Spike has gone, arguably the most interesting in the entire show. It's like him and Sander for wildly different reasons. Sander in the sense of like he's learning a lot and he's growing a lot. Spike, because of just the decisions that they decided to do with this guy, where he was an evil antagonist and he was so cool and fun that people kind of immediately really liked him. Then they brought him back as a pathetic loser, sad boy. Then they brought him back up as someone who's trying to recover from being a pathetic loser, sad boy. Immediately gets a chip implanted into his brain, and now he's literally a punching bag because there's nothing he can do. So he becomes a joke character, and he hates the idea of being a joke character. And now fast forward to season 5, where he's desperately trying to stop being a joke character because the treatment he's getting in the show and from Buffy is making him insane. He's starting to lose his mind. He's losing himself. And that's actually really interesting to me, a character like Spike. I really enjoy that. I have no fucking clue where we go forward from here. I mean, probably what I would think Spike would do from this point onward, after this revelation, would be to be avoidant towards Buffy. I feel like, well, Buffy's gonna go up to him and intimidate him, bully him, or whatever she's been doing for this past entire season, and Spike is just not gonna be able to look at her in the eyes. Something like that. He's gonna be avoidant, and then he's gonna insult her, but he's not gonna actually engage in a direct confrontation. And it's because he's starting to lose his mind over the fact that all he can think about is Buffy. So I think the natural response from him would be to just be no, I have to stop because this is insane. And he's gonna actively try to pull away from Buffy, but he can't because the show is called Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So if Spike is losing his mind because he's living in Buffy's world, then I'm sorry, my guy. You're a character in a show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You're kind of hopeless in this regard. Okay, Dropout just released a new episode of Dimension 20 Time Quangle, and I see Big Barry 6 in the thumbnail, so I need to wrap this shit up. So there's a lot to talk about still, so I'm gonna try to just move forward instead of getting fucking distracted by Dragon Ball or whatever. Let's talk about Riley. This episode is heavily Riley focused, and I actually do like that because I don't know for how long I've been expecting Riley to fucking die. It's been a long fucking time. I was sure he was gonna die at the end of season 4. I was sure he was gonna die this episode. He keeps hanging on. However, the seeds are being planted, and that's something I can see, and that's something that to me makes a lot of sense. And what I mean by that is that, okay, Riley doesn't need to die in order for him to just exit the show. I can see Riley exiting the show within the next 5 episodes, maybe even the next episode. Because what they did right there at the ending was set up this... I don't remember the name of the guy. I'm literally never going to remember the name of this guy. Riley's friend, who wasn't the toxic yaoi friend, but the other friend. The third, oh my god, I said I wasn't going to do this, but in Naruto when you Google oh, those 2 guys from Naruto, and then it's oh, the other guy that's not those 2 guys, and you just know who the guys you're talking about is. Well, Riley's friend, not the main one, the other one, the third friend, that one. So that guy tells Riley, essentially, you have nothing left here. You're not doing anything. You're not doing jack shit. You should come with us. You should come back with us. So they're recruiting him again. And Riley seems to be at a low enough point that he might actually just take that, which is unfortunate because I don't want to... okay. I say unfortunate because I don't want to see Riley go down that direction because I'm never going to root for someone to go back to the US military. I'm sorry about that. That just seems like the worst thing you could possibly do with your life. So that's just a bad thing. It's objectively bad. However, they are encouraging him to do so, and it seems like maybe he will. Because what he said is kind of right. There's nothing left for Riley here. And this is going to be interesting because I was thinking about this earlier, and it's how relationships with Buffy are very complex, and that's something I do appreciate because they're very nuanced, where you can't see a character and be oh, they're right or they're wrong. Or this character is doing the good thing and this character is doing the bad, toxic thing. Because I see, what Buffy said, there is a level of truth of what Buffy said, where she was you're going to just like die because you don't trust me. Because like you don't trust when I say, you know, like I love you and like I care about you. Like I'm gonna stick by you. You feel like I'm gonna leave you behind if you don't keep up. Like that's what this is about. It's about me, motherfucker. It's not about me, it's about you and the way you see me. But there is a level of truth to that. And I do like that this kind of ties back into something that I noticed and I mentioned. And I remember people in the comment section told me, like, yes, like, a good job, like, actually pointed that out. Because I don't think... This is interesting because it's like, I don't know if the character realized how toxic this was back then. And I don't know if the writer realized how toxic this was back then. But during... Yoko Factor in season 4, when Buffy says like, why are you acting like this, and Riley says something like, because I love you so much I can't think straight, something like that. Sure, if you're someone who thinks that's romantic, sure, but realistically I see that as like a very red flag because there is no trust. Like that comes back right here. It's the idea that Riley has this like moments of jealousy. Riley has these moments where he feels like it's not good enough, but it all stems from the fact that he feels like Buffy will abandon him. He was very quick to think of the idea of like, oh, Buffy's fucking Angel, his ex again. And as much as we can like look at that and be like, haha, that's just like a funny storyline of like, I don't know what to say about this, like, toxic boyfriends or, like, the masculinity of, like, oh my god, that guy's taking your girl or whatever you want to go into. You can say that, but realistically, that's just a bad thing. That's just a toxic trait. And you could talk through that. You could actually have the characters in the relationship actually talk about it and think to themselves, you know what? Yes, this is something that I shouldn't be doing. This is very bad. This is something toxic. However, my man said, like, I don't know, babe, I just love you so much. You're driving me crazy. And it's like, bro, that's not real. That's not a real thing what you're saying. Like, you're not realizing how bad it is what you're doing for the context of a relationship dynamic. And neither did Buffy. She didn't call it out then. They just, like, kissed and embraced. And it was like, oh my god, that's, like, so romantic or whatever. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, it wasn't. It really wasn't. I don't know. I haven't seen my video because why would I? But like my reaction to that like moment where it was treated as a romantic thing, and when I say that I mean like the way it was shot, the way it was framed, the way it was scored, it felt like romantic. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, I don't feel that way. I don't feel like that's what this was. So now retroactively, we can look at that scene and be like, yeah, that was bad. With the context given by this episode, because Riley's definitely of this like very toxic mentality that no one realized that was toxic at the time, but now it comes in big time. So there is definitely a level of truth to what Buffy said there of like, you don't trust me, and that's kind of the problem. However, there is also the problem that is Buffy, because Buffy this season very clearly doesn't have time for Riley. Okay, it's difficult to talk about this because we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. Maybe we do. Maybe it's not that deep. But what I'm thinking is that something is happening to Buffy, and I feel like at this point you should be thinking that something is happening to Buffy. The way she's acting, the way that she's very devoted into like learning and training, and she's so distracted from any like normal girl human shit, which is a wild contrast from Buffy from seasons 4 and previous. Like, this is just a very different character, and I think that something happened to Buffy. And maybe we can just look at that and say, hey, maybe this is just Buffy this season. Like, this is just a character now. Just deal with it. But I think that something did happen, because it would make sense for in a supernatural show like this one for something to have happened. And also, Dawn exists. We're gonna talk about that in a second. God, I want to go watch Time Quangle. Okay, let's go back. So I mentioned this already at the kind of the beginning here. Is that like I feel like if we're going with the theory of like the spirit of the Slayer was like unleashed during Restless, or it was a catalyst for something that happened later with Dracula when Dawn showed up or whatever, and maybe we go by the idea that the spirit of the Slayer is more about like instinct and about just hunting whatever, and has like no room for like emotion, then that becomes the answer as to why Buffy's so distracted from Riley. And that is something we can see every time anything happens regarding the two of them this season. Like, there's a scene where like Riley goes to Buffy's home and Buffy is like, oh, why are you here? And he was like, well, you told me yesterday, yeah, let's hang out at my house tomorrow afternoon. And then Buffy was like, oh, sorry, I made plans with Giles. And Riley was like, all right, I get it. You're doing the slaying thing. You're doing the superhero thing. Like, I get it. Training is important. I'm not going to get in your way. And then it's like, oh, cool. Thank you. And then we just kind of move on past that. There's also a bad thing in a relationship, by the way, whenever your partner does something that kind of fucks you over, does something that is just bad. It's just a bad thing. And you shouldn't be upset at them for it, but you should like bring it up in the sense of like, kind of feels like you're leaving me a little bit behind here. Kind of feels like you're not committing to a relationship as much as I wish you did. But instead what Riley does is that he just kind of takes it and he's like, okay, I understand. But like, you can do that a couple times, but after a certain amount of times, you have to be like, this isn't working. Like, there's something wrong here. My hard drive started working again while I was talking. All of this is being saved into my SSD, not my hard drive, but I'm still checking in case something went wrong. But yeah, like in terms of a healthy relationship, like Buffy is kind of ignoring Riley and Riley is not talking about it with Buffy. He's just kind of taking it and being like, okay. And this is like, I talked about this a little bit last episode with Sander where I was saying that like there is a little bit of friction between Sander and Anya, but like that's like healthy amount of like friction, a healthy amount of like banter and just talking shit on each other, and then we just move on past that and we're still together, right? Like we're conflicting with one another, but we're overcoming together. Meanwhile, what happens with Buffy and Riley is that something happens that is not great for the health of the relationship, and then they just kind of smile through it and say like, no, it's fine. And it's not. Like, it makes you feel bad, but you don't want your partner to feel bad, so you don't actually bring it up. And if you do that enough times, at a certain point, your heart is just not going to be in it anymore because you're being hurt too many times. It's just a relationship built on this like facade rather than like any semblance of like realism. So that's kind of the point the relationship between Buffy and Riley is at. Riley is not bringing any of this up to Buffy, and I do think it's valid. I do think it's genuinely valid what Riley is going through because, like, listen, at the end of this episode, this man just had, like, open heart surgery or whatever. He almost died for a variety of different reasons because, like, he almost died because his heart exploded, and then he almost died because he went under surgery because, like, his surgery is also just, like, something to be worried about, by the way. That's not an easy kind of shit. We don't get to see it, but there should have been an element of, like, oh my God, I hope he's okay. Like, like, people in the waiting room just being really stressed about like, oh my God, I hope everything's okay. And then the doctor comes out and it's like, it's a success. It's good, everyone. And it's like, oh, it's a moment of relief. Like, we just kind of didn't even deal with that. We just completely moved past that. Maybe there wasn't a surgery. I don't know. We don't know what happened in between. Like, we saved the doctor and then Riley's fine. Like, we don't know what happened in between those two events. But it really looked like he did some kind of like maybe. I mean, the doctor said, like, we don't have enough instruments for, like, proper surgery here, so maybe they didn't do that. But he did some kind of thing on this man's heart, like, clearly, because he was, like, bandaged there. And then Riley stands up, and it's like, oh, I feel better. And then Buffy's like, oh, cool. Like, it's good that we fixed this problem. Like, yes, like, I'm glad I saved you or whatever. And then it's like, anyway, I gotta go check up on my mom, so goodbye. And just left him. And it's like, I understand being worried about Joyce. I do like being worried about Joyce. I like Joyce being an active part of the plot. And we're going to talk about it in a second. But the way that Riley just went through all of this, and then Buffy immediately, not even waiting like 10 seconds, she was just like, all right, gotta go. And just left his ass. And I am not sure if that is Buffy not realizing that that is an incredibly toxic thing to do, very uncaring, or if that is Buffy being petty over what Riley said and how Riley felt. The idea of like you know, like, I don't trust you. And then Buffy's like, oh, you don't trust me? Like, fuck you. Like, if that is Buffy kind of getting back at him because she's being petty and just leaving his ass because it's like, I already dealt with enough of your shit tonight. I'm just gonna move on and go, like, check up on, like, someone I actually care about, like my mom. Like, I don't know if that's what that was, or if that was her just not realizing how little this man means to her. At least that's what she's displaying to him. And it's not that just one event. It's like everything in the season, including the beginning of this episode. Like, there was that moment where, like, Buffy walked into, like, the training room that they built for her, which looks dope as shit, by the way, but also very just a very display of, like, how out of character Buffy is, because, you know, like Buffy would have never been like, oh my god, this is beautiful, thank you, it's everything I wanted, and it's just a training room for her to, like, get stronger. And it's like, that's not my Buffy. That's not Buffy seasons 4 and previous. Like, that's just a completely different character. But, like, Riley tackles her just trying to be playful, and also because he's running hot with adrenaline, so he's, like, very active. And Buffy is like, oh, whatever, moves on past that immediately. It's like, oh my god, this is beautiful, thank you so much. And, like, even in that scene, if you look at, like, would you call it body language? I guess, like, she looks at Giles and then she looks at Xander, and it's like, oh my god, you guys did so much. And, like, Riley is, like, in the middle of them, and she goes from one to the other and doesn't even talk to Riley until the very end, whenever she's like, oh right, you're here too, and just tries to, like, include him somehow. It makes a lot of sense for Riley to feel like he's being left behind, like he doesn't fit into the dynamic. And this is something I already said before. I already said previous season, I was like, I'm ready for him to die because he doesn't fit into the dynamic. However, the dynamic here is not just, like, it's not just the character dynamic, but also just the role dynamic. Because in terms of character dynamic, I don't feel like Riley really brings much to the table. And in terms of the role dynamic is what we're finding out that he also don't bring anything to the table. And that all of that just really brings forth how Riley doesn't really do anything for the group. He really doesn't. Because all Riley is like another guy who can punch other guys. He doesn't really have a role into the dynamic, but also he doesn't have a role in terms of, like, usefulness, other than, like, maybe I can patrol with Buffy and we can kick ass together. And even that wasn't something that Buffy wanted. So, like, it feels like Riley's time in the show is like over. Because, like, and I mentioned this previous season, I was like, the reason why Riley can be interesting is because you can tell the interesting tale about, like, someone who joins, like, the military and then they realize it's evil and it's like, we gotta go rise up against it. But then after that, his character doesn't really have a lot going on. And the reason why he was interesting is because he was directly tied to the main plot. But in terms of, like, the cast, doesn't feel like he does much. And this episode is directly addressing that, and I feel like we're gonna be saying goodbye to Riley somewhat soon. Because it really feels like we really don't have a lot for this guy here. We really don't. And honestly, the best thing you could do is to actually write an episode like this one, where you actually bring forward some of the things about Riley that make sense, and be like, these are the reasons why he might just leave. And I will say that all of this is, like, better than Oz, because I feel like Oz was rushed. Like, within one episode, it was like, oh yeah, he fucked this girl and then just, he left. With Riley, it feels like a lot of, like, toxic traits that this relationship has had that were kind of overlooked are now coming forth, and now they become a main issue for some of these people. And that is seeding into why this relationship will fall apart. To me, this relationship already kind of fell apart this episode, like Buffy and Riley. Maybe next episode they're gonna, like, pretend to be together again, but, like, to me it feels like this was it. It feels like from now on Riley knows that this is it. He already knew that this was it last episode when he said it. It feels like maybe Buffy doesn't know it yet. Maybe Buffy will continue to believe that, like, oh no, we're okay, but they're not. Like, they're not, and Buffy doesn't realize how much she is sidelining Riley. And Riley didn't mention that to Buffy for the longest time. So now it reached at, like, this critical point, and all of this shit happened because of it. Anyway, so more season-long things that we can talk about here. Okay, whatever happened to Joyce with Dawn? And something else about Dawn that I was thinking about that I'm not sure if I should follow up on, but I'll just mention. But let's talk about Joyce. Something incredibly quick happened with Joyce where Joyce had a headache or something, and then she looked at Dawn and she was like, "Who are you?" And then she passed out. Okay, that is something that you're obviously supposed to like zero in on, like, okay, this is real shit. Because the mystery of the season has become Dawn. That the mystery of the season is immediately Dawn. That was the case from the end of episode 1 and then all of episode 2 and now forward. Dawn is just a part of the show now. And the craziest thing about Dawn is that like we're just kind of like moving forward without actually engaging with Dawn in any way. Like episode 3, Sander episode, episode 4, Riley episode. It's like we introduced Dawn. We had an entire episode about Dawn. You're not given any answers, and then we just kind of move on, and we just do something different. And it's like, okay, sure. I'm not sure what we're doing with Dawn, but she's just a constant here. And something I forgot to mention at the intro of this video, but I'm gonna say it now, and I'm gonna maybe bring it up next week as well. I have decided to not read any YouTube comments anymore. Zero. Just stop flat out. And I have been warned about that with season 5. I was thinking Doctor Who. People told me like, yeah, comments are going to be hellish in season 5. So, you know, you need a moderator or something. I'm not going to read them, just straight up. If anything happens, maybe let me know on Patreon, but I'm just not going to read YouTube comments. That doesn't give you permission to spoil shit in the comments. Don't talk about open spoilers. Not just in case I could ever read them in the future, but also there are people that actually do watch these videos watching the show alongside me. That's not a huge amount of people. I think that the majority of people who watch these videos, I've seen it already. But I do think that there are people that do watch shows because they watch it alongside me, or watch it alongside whatever the reactor is doing. That's like a fun, different experience you can have. So just for those people, don't spoil shit, okay? Even if I'm not gonna read it, don't do it. Just don't. If you're gonna spoil something, put it in like big tags or something. Just like, don't read below or whatever. Some shit like that. Just generally don't. Anyway, I'm not gonna read comments anymore. And the reason for that, there's no like big issue or anything that happens, so don't worry about that. The reason I'm not reading them anymore is because I posted the reaction to the first episode of season 5, and I don't know what anyone started talking about. Like, I only read like the first wave of comments. Whenever I published the video, I was just reading the first comments that came in as the video was published, and I don't know what anyone was talking about, but the word gaslighting came out a ton. And I'm not interested in finding out. I don't want to know. I literally don't want to know what anyone is talking about, because I don't know to what level we're playing here. There's like different levels at play here, where it's like my relationship with the show relationships with its audience, which frequently acknowledge my relationship with my audience and the relationship my audience has with me. Therefore, I've just decided, you know what? I'm not gonna deal with this. I'm just gonna fucking remove a whole part from the equation. I am not interested in dealing with whatever that is. I don't want to know, because like the less I know, the better it's going to be. And this has always been my belief. But I always do want to like have some kind of relation with my audience, and for the most part, it has been Patreon, and I'm just gonna keep it at that. I'm gonna talk to people on Patreon, maybe leave comments or reply to comments or like read them and like them. But I'm just gonna ignore YouTube on this one. Just fuck all y'all. You mean nothing to me now. The gaslighting might just be the idea that, you know, Dawn is here now, and you just kind of have to accept that. The show is not going to explain to you why Dawn is here, but you just kind of have to roll with the idea that Dawn is here. And it's like, maybe that's the gaslighting, is everyone just acts as if Dawn was always here and you're supposed to roll with that. Maybe that is the gaslighting I was talking about. However, the fact that everyone keeps talking about gaslighting, because I completely refused to talk about Dawn at the beginning, at the ending of the first episode, I was like, whatever. Like, that is going to be explained to me in the future. I don't have to care about that now. That was what I said, and I was like, I don't give a shit about this character right now. That is for future me to worry about. And like, everyone, and like, I had a reaction coming from people being like, I've never seen that reaction of someone that just directly flat out says, I don't give a fuck about that right now. It was talking about Dracula being dumb or whatever. And someone said something like, how dare you not give us the pleasure of like gaslighting you or whatever. And I was like, okay, maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like a rite of passage or something. I don't know what we're doing here. But the gaslighting sounds like it's related to Dawn, and I don't know to what level that will extend. However, I'm not interested in finding out. Like, I'm not going to deal with this shit. I'm not going to read any comments because I feel like reading comments is just a recipe for a disaster. Something bad's going to happen. Someone's going to say something that they shouldn't have. And it's going to be better for me to just not deal with that anymore. Like, even when I watched the first episode, someone left a comment that was like, you know, be back before dawn. And I'm like, oh my God, y'all are quoting shit that I already know in my head. And I already know why it's related. I mean, I don't know the specifics, but I know that the character's name is Dawn, so I can connect those dots. And people are bringing that up before Dawn is even named. And I'm like, okay, I see how this is going to be. Y'all are going to be weird, nasty little freaks. So I'm just not going to deal with any of y'all anymore. So yeah, this is my official announcement that I'm not going to read any more comments. Sorry about that. But like, I think this is for the best because nothing like really serious like has been spoiled to me or anything like that. This is just me being proactive here. Me reading multiple people say the word gaslight and me being like, okay, I don't want to deal with that. I don't know what that is and I'm not interested in knowing what that is. I'm just going to move on and go back to Buffy here. So, okay, going back to the episode and why I bring this up is because I don't know what the deal is with Dawn. Clearly, I'm not meant to know. This is the normal experience with Dawn. I already cooked the theory. It was a theory that was immediately put on camera, immediately addressed, which makes me think that maybe it's so obvious and clear of a theory that people would have that the show was already a step ahead. And if that is the case, I don't trust myself anymore. But it could also be a case of the show not expecting someone to just immediately say what it is. And maybe I'm just super right. And maybe that's like the hypest sniper shot I've ever hit in my life. You know, about Dawn being like Buffy's second half, her human half, and he got like split or whatever. Like that. However, because the show directly looked into the camera and addressed that, I feel like it's not. But if it is, then hell yeah, I'm patting myself on the back for that one. But if it's not, then sure, we're just gonna move on, and I'm just gonna operate on the assumption that it's not because it's more fun that way. But there's several elements of Dawn that the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, I don't know, and it feels like the show wants to fuck with me, and it all comes from like the very beginning, the gaslight of saying that, you know, Dawn was always here. Everyone acts as if Dawn was always here. And like, I am not someone that necessarily fights the show whenever the show gives me something. I do question things because I do like questioning things. I do like bringing things up. But whenever the show just straight up is like, okay, we're going to be doing the storyline where this character, like, clearly you've never seen before, but we're going to act as if this character was always here. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Like, I'm open to whatever you're doing. Whatever the storyline is, I am open to it. Let's see where this goes. I am going to be playing detective the whole time trying to figure it out because that's engaging and that's good. That's good. But I am not going to be combative over the fact that Dawn is someone that shouldn't be here. So in terms of the gaslight, I'm like, I don't care, right? Like, if the show wants the gaslight, I mean, sure, like, this is just the storyline we're doing today. Or this season. But something that I'm starting to think about is how deep does that, like, I guess gimmick goes? Because something that Dawn says in this episode, and I was thinking about it when I was like cooking downstairs earlier today. Dawn said she was starting to talk about like all this conspiracy theories about the CIA and shit. And it's like, yeah, she's saying a bunch of this shit. I'm not sure how much of what she said was real or it wasn't. And she says at one point, I even lie in my diary in case they're watching. And that is a line that is kind of a joke line. And it could just be a joke line. However, if you're someone like me, you're going to go to bed tonight and you're going to be sitting there being like, my fucking God, what do I do with that? Because that immediately puts into question everything that we know about Dawn from episode 2. Because episode 2's entire, like, I guess the setup of the episode is that Dawn is kind of narrating the episode because we get to hear Dawn's inner thoughts. And generally, whenever you hear characters' inner thoughts, that is something that you to yourself think, oh, this is real. This is something that we can take for granted. Because generally, whenever someone thinks that, they mean it, right? Like, if someone lies to you, they're gonna think, like, I'm lying. Like, as been stated many times before, I'm a JoJo fan. JoJo is a show where, like, everyone has internal monologues every, like, 2 seconds, and everything is always true and 100% honest. There is no subtlety, there's no ambiguity. Everyone just says whatever is in their hearts. However, everything in episode 2, even though it's an internal monologue, like internal narration, it is presented to you by her writing her thoughts into her diary, which means that because of the line that she said in this episode, I sometimes lie on my diary in case they're watching, makes me think now I have no assurance that anything of what she said in episode 2 was true. So whenever she's talking about being the Slayer's sister, whenever she's talking about how she feels, whenever she's talking about herself, and whenever she's talking about, I think at the end of the episode she writes something like, maybe she's writing in her diary, maybe she isn't, but she was like either writing in her diary or doing homework, and she was like they don't know what did she say? It was like they think I'm just some like whatever, like innocent, like teenage girl incapable of nothing. Well, they'll see, or something like that. She said something like very like ominous, and if she was writing that in her diary, we don't even know if that was real. And the beginning of the episode, when she starts talking about herself, we don't know if that is real either. So here's the thing about Dawn 2, though, is that because of the existence of Dawn being now like 3 episodes, that's it, that's all we got, and she's been a minor side character in 2 of them, because we have so little of Dawn, it means that I don't even know what to rewrite about Dawn anymore. Like, whatever I thought in my head was the case about Dawn, I don't even know how much of that should be a lie now. I don't know how much of that it comes into question anymore, because I don't know how much of that I would have assumed was real in any way. So just to recap, Dawn is a character that I have very limited knowledge about, and I don't even know if that limited knowledge is real. Because we have nothing about Dawn's origins. The only thing that we had was Dawn's like thoughts and feelings, and that was something that we could like maybe tangible grab onto and be like, oh, that's real. And now this episode is like, not even that is real. Like, I mean, it could be, but it could also be a lie. I don't know if she was saying the truth or lying. And that also, by the way, if we go a step further, we don't know if her saying that something she lies in her diaries, in case they're listening, is a lie because she's saying it out loud and they could be listening to that as well. So, in my mind, what I'm thinking is, man, this shit just wants to fuck with me, with y'all, with anyone who watches this shit. And this is something that I knew. This is something that we've known forever. And I think I mentioned it last episode. I think this was something that I actually like went on a mini rant about, how much the show cares about like audience, interacting with the audience on some level in a way where it's just kind of fucking with you. And that's not something that I necessarily think to be a positive thing. But when it comes to Dawn, right now it's fun. Right now it's interesting. Because like the show is doing all these things about Dawn. The reason why I say that I think this is just a show fucking with me is because like, what have we learned about Dawn? And the answer is nothing. The answer is we haven't learned nothing. And like, my reaction to Dawn from episode 1 with Dracula still stands true. Me looking at Dawn and saying like, whatever, I don't care. The show is just going to tell me whenever they feel like telling me. I don't have to worry about that now. We're just going to deal with that later. Whenever the show determines to be the moment where they want to like actually utilize her and actually have me on the loop of what that is. That reaction that I had to Dawn, even though it was very dismissive, is still kind of the true reaction that you should have towards Dawn at this point. Because the show hasn't had anything about Dawn for you to play with yet. You don't know anything about Dawn. So trying to like get really deep into like these conspiracy theories about like who's Dawn, what is she doing here, what is her purpose, like where is her origin, like none of that matters right now. because it's all conspiracy theory. Because the show hasn't given you much information about Dawn yet. And what they have given you was just said in this episode, hey, none of it could be real. Maybe that's all a lie. So that feels to be like the show is just being like, you really want to know? Well, I'm not going to tell you. And I'm just sitting here like, okay, sure. If we're going to play that game, then sure. Like, I don't know what to say. I have like my one theory of like being Buffy's like human half after the events of Restless and Dracula. And that would explain Buffy. And that would explain Dawn. That's still a conspiracy theory. That's still me grasping at straws to try to like come up with an explanation for Dawn when there is none. So right now, the idea that even in that minor like one line dropped by Dawn in this episode that just removes anything that we could have said with certainty about Dawn from episode 2. I mean, we're just still at the ending of episode 1, whenever Dawn shows up and it's like, they take your sister to the cinema and then go, what? And the audience goes, what? We're still at that point. We haven't moved past that point. The show wants you to believe that we have moved past that point, but we haven't yet. We don't know anything about Dawn yet. What little do we know was just determined to be maybe a lie, so we don't even know that yet. We're still exactly where we left off in episode 1, where it's, yeah, Dawn is here now. And that's all you have. So maybe that is the gaslighting of the show. Maybe the show is just going to continuously give you reasons as to that explain Dawn, and then immediately say, yeah, none of that shit's true. None of that shit's real. Fuck you. You're dumb for thinking that. Because like I thought like, oh, it's like Buffy's like human half that got split. And then the episode immediately after that one was like, yeah, we're having Sandra do that storyline. Okay, so maybe it's not that. And then episode after that, it's like, actually, anything you know about Dawn might not even be real because she lies. And it's like, okay, so I got nothing. I got nothing here. And maybe that's what the show is going to do this season. Maybe that is the gaslighting everyone mentions. It's the idea that anything they can give me to work with Dawn is going to be immediately refuted because this, which is, I don't even know what to call that. And I'm actually not going to entertain that idea until I see more of it, because if they keep doing that, then yeah, okay, sure. I can see that as a pattern of like the show being like, what if, but what if, and they just keep toying with me like I'm a baby. Maybe they could do that. I don't know what are we going to be doing with Dawn here? But if that is the case, that is something that could happen. But that's something that could happen for sure. Okay, so whatever happened with Joyce, that is interesting because previous episode, 2 episodes ago, sorry, there was this like random man that Dawn met in front of the like the magic shop, and he freaked. He looked at Dawn and he was like, "You're wrong. You don't belong here," or whatever. He mentioned Red Riding Hood or what am I thinking? Fucking the Spiders one, Little Miss Muffet. He mentioned Little Miss Muffet, which directly connects to Restless. Not Restless, the Faith episode, season 3, all the way back there. Directly connects to that, and I was like, why does this man know? This mysterious random on the street knows this shit. And then in this episode, we see how Joyce has a moment where she gets confused and she was like, who are you? And it's like, oh, okay. So maybe it wasn't just a random guy. Maybe it's just someone at random, just randomly has a moment of clarity where they look at Dawn and they see that something's wrong here. Like, this person doesn't belong here. Which is interesting because the random guy on the street, he said you don't belong here. And that was just a random guy on the street. Because, like, it would be one thing if Joyce says, like, who are you? Why are you in my house? But because the random man on the street said, who are you? It almost creates this feeling that, like, Dawn has, like, an aura around her of something that doesn't feel right? Of, like, someone who's not a real person. Someone who's just pretending to be a human being. And if you roll a nat 20 perception in that moment whenever you're standing next to her, you have this moment of, like, what are you? And maybe that's what that is. It's like, if you roll a nat 20 perception, anytime you're in a room with Dawn, you might have a moment of pure clarity where you realize this is not a person. And there's something really cool about that in like a kind of like, I don't know, like eldritch horror kind of way that I'm not sure if the show is even remotely interested in exploring that, because there's no indication that that's the case. But I do consider that to be a really cool concept of like someone is not what they seem. And like that's just, I mean, that is a concept that was explored a million times. Like we have movies like The Thing, right? Body Snatchers in general is the idea of like whoever's standing right here next to you, they are not what they seem to be. And Dawn is kind of a step further into that same idea, where it's like this person wasn't here before, but you perceive them as if they were. But sometimes someone is just going to roll on that 20 perception and they're going to be like, this person doesn't belong here. And I'm not talking about like, this girl shouldn't be in my house. I'm talking about like what's standing right here in front of me is not something that should exist in this dimension, right? You just feel a visceral reaction in you that is just like, you are wrong. And that's something that I consider to be very cool. I'm not sure if the show is going to be doing that, but if they do, I do like that concept a lot of like, Dawn is something that is wrong, like on a fundamental, like physical level. She is wrong. And sometimes someone can perceive that. Sometimes. There was a moment where Sander just explained his facade to everyone out loud under the pretense of like, you know, I had a friend. And then Anya immediately chimes in with like, oh yeah, I had that friend. And then she starts like reassuring him like very openly. And it's kind of really cute. I love Anya. But then the idea that everyone's just like, bro, Riley's gonna die. Like, we need to chill. It's funny. Harmony was featured prominently in this episode. I like Harmony as a character. Harmony hasn't done much, despite how much of a prominent character she's becoming. I would like it if she did more. Because right now she's just like a ditzy vampire who's like trying to be evil, but she's too dumb to be so. And that's like the joke. It would be nice if she was more than that. And maybe she'll be. This season, she's been in 2 episodes already. That's kind of fun. So maybe we'll see more of her in the future. And that would be cool. MVP of the episode goes to the doctor. Dude, that doctor, that man, he was like, and I noticed, and I noticed, and I was like, if he did that, he's the GOAT. He's the best. And he did. He had to roll. I mean, given he was rolling against Harmony, so he probably didn't need to roll a very high deception, nor a very high, I mean, he had to roll probably a high sleight of hand, but I mean, Harmony's perception was probably pretty low. Like, what stat do you use for perception? You use your wisdom. Oh man, Harmony has like a 5 wisdom. There is no fucking shot. So yeah, he just rolled a persuasion, deception, and a sleight of hand. Yeah, Harmony had no shot. Like, that's on the doctor for being the GOAT. He identified, like, I'm gonna lie to this guy about the chip. But then he had that moment of, like, put your cigarette out, you know? Like, he instructed her to do so. He convinced her to do so. Then she went and did it. And in that microsecond, he just, like, put up a coin there. And he was like, all right, I'm done. I did it. And then everyone's like, yeah, you did it. And it's like, well, she wasn't looking. I lied. Everyone believed it. Let's fucking go. I'm the GOAT. And, like, Harmony could have, like, maybe killed him because, like, I mean, he's a regular guy, and even though Harmony's really dumb, she can probably kill him. I mean, she has low wisdom, but she's a vampire, man. Like, come on. She has some attacks she can do. But yeah, no, he tricked them, and that was awesome. Like, shout out to that doctor. That one guy, for being just a random one guy, he was the GOAT. Anyway, I don't know if you can tell from the amount of D&D references I'm making. I really want to go watch Time Quangle. I really want to watch Big Berry 6 again. Like, I love Starstruck Odyssey, and Time Quangle is feeding into me loving Starstruck Odyssey alongside every other D20 campaign. I'm just talking about D20 now. Go watch Dimension 20. Great fucking show. Every season. Banger. I'm going to go now. I think I said everything I wanted to say. It's also late, so I have to go. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this reaction episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. See you guys next time. Bye. But if you would like the next couple episode reactions to Buffy, you can already do so over at the Patreon. Check out the links from below, social media, all sorts of cool stuff that I do. You can also watch Angel, by the way. So yeah, thank you so much. See you guys next time. Bye-bye. Take care.